Teaching the Whole Child, a resource for Grade 6 teachers. Today we'll be talking about paediology, which is what we do. We educate students. We'll be talking about it in terms of a holistic approach, which is how we do it. We're focused on student well-being and pastoral care, effective teaching practices for good academic outcomes, and classroom resources. Learning is lifelong. That's why we do it. And we want it to be a positive and engaging experience for our students so that they can continue to grow and become meaningful contributors to our society. Ideas on how to teach the whole child. Student well-being and pastoral care. These are just some words to describe the ideal learning environment for students. It's important to have an ideal learning environment so that students feel good about themselves and about learning. They need to feel safe both physically and emotionally, and we want it to be productive and engaging to promote academic success. In teaching the whole child, it's important to give them a great sense of community. It's good for their self-esteem and confidence, and it tells them about the outside world. It is also important to develop a student's sense of identity. This is so we can arm them with attributes for later success. It can celebrate differences and diversity in the culture, but we need to make sure we cater it to the individual. The following are just a couple of strategies that you can adopt to make sure you're promoting student wellbeing and pastoral care in your own classroom. My personal favourite is the classroom rules. I think that it is important to define the environment and make it feel safe for students, and also make it a predictable environment. Effective teaching practices for good academic outcomes. I'm going to just briefly go over learning theories, as I'm sure you would have covered it in your teaching education, but we're going to start with the behaviourist perspective. It's mostly about stimulus, S, and response, R, relationships, and it's based on the 5 assumptions on the screen before you now. Mostly in teaching, we focus on conditioning. We do classical conditioning, which is involuntary, and the behaviour follows a stimulus. We also do operant conditioning, which is voluntary, and behaviour occurs before the stimulus. When teaching the whole child in our classrooms, we use a form of conditioning called instrumental conditioning, and it's based around behavioural consequences. So that's reinforcement and punishment, as you can see on the screen in front of you. We use this to manage behaviour in our classrooms to ensure students are learning, and we're providing a positive environment and experience for them. We're nurturing them and letting them grow. More recently, we've been introduced to the cognitive approach. In our classrooms, we use this alongside the behaviourist approach to understand our students' level of development. Therefore, we can cater our curriculum to them. It's mostly focused on memory and its development across the lifespan. Particularly working with grade 6 students, we need to make sure we're keeping in mind limited attention spans, their level of perception, the fact that they're still concrete thinkers, and the fact we want to model metacognition within them. On the screen now are just some examples of how you can do that, such as show abstract ideas in concrete terms and attract attention at the start of lessons. And what it's all about, promoting desired behaviours in our classrooms. We can focus on the individual, but it's also really important to focus on the class as a whole. A good way of doing that is using group contingencies. These are optimal for encouraging improved academic achievement and classroom behaviour. With the individual, we mostly use reinforcement, often, promptly, and catered to our students' needs, whether it be a candy bar, so concrete, social, like a gesture, or activity like free time. Often they're extrinsic, so from us, external, but we want to instill, preserve, and encourage intrinsic reinforcers, so the student telling themselves they've done a good job. And now for the tricky part, decreasing unwanted behaviours in our classrooms. Such unwanted behaviours can include counterproductive emotional responses, such as being afraid of the class pet, disruptive and counterproductive behaviour, which we've all experienced, and the more serious disruptive and counterproductive behaviour that affects the safety of your students and yourself. We mostly use punishment to deal with these behaviours, and there are some various options on the screen now that you can take. When teaching the whole child, it's important to take into consideration each child's own different aspects of learning. For example, students with special needs. On the screen before you are some of these. Because we're in the business of nurturing young students, it is never okay to use physical punishment or psychological punishment. It's also not okay to use extra classwork, as this sends a negative image about learning. Whilst developing little minds, it's also important for us to keep in mind generalisation, extinction, and delay of gratification, explained on the screen before you. Now that we've done an entire psych degree in a couple of minutes, here are just some simpler strategies that we can just pick up and use every day. Such things as have an allocated timeout area in your classroom, allocate social reinforcements that involve peers such as free time for completing tasks early. You could even develop a token policy in your classroom whereby good behaviour earns tokens and they can be used to purchase rewards such as free time and early minutes. Classroom resources. There are various classroom resources in place to help us do our job of teaching the whole child. To start with, use your supplied learning tools effectively, such as your blackboard, your reading books, your computer, etc. Use engaging colours and different mediums to convey messages. Use your classroom furniture to create different microenvironments with different atmospheres, such as your timeout corner, reading corner, and play area. If you feel like you might need some classroom support, there's always the school faculty, your family and friends, and various government websites on the screen before you can turn to for help. To make sure you're educating the whole child and fostering their interests in different things, here are some useful links you can use in the classroom. To use your classroom resources well, here are some strategies to help you. Keep informed. Sign up to newsletters, emails, news, Twitter and Facebook accounts from education websites. Subscribe to education journals. Keep supported. Have a go-to person at your school or in your personal network for friendly advice, and always discuss issues promptly with superiors and seek guidance. Keep learning. Explore the internet for other useful websites to aid your students' development, and be on the lookout for training programs to better your professional self. Just like our students and societies, education is always changing. It's important that we're changing with it to always nurture tomorrow's future. We need to teach every aspect of the child: academia, individuality, coping strategies, physical health, life skills, just to name a few. It's important to be a dynamic teacher. I hope today's strategies will help you do that.